Alright, so the plan for today, first off, we figured out what was going on with React Router, or not React Router, sorry, Next Router, and it was a bug. We got a PR. One of you guys helped to fix it, so thank you. So I'll show you guys the fix for that. And then after that, I was thinking a lot about how I want kind of the whole snapshotting of the code to work. Because basically, we're pulling data from the GitHub API. So like when I go over here to CodePonder and I go to Prettier, I'm loading the code for the master branch, the latest code. But if I change the code, then the question, like the code could be changed, right? I could add more lines to this file, and then our question can possibly get messed up because it references lines of code. So the idea is to get the commit ID and store that. Now the question is, originally I was thinking about storing this commit ID on the question itself. Like I asked this question on this file on this commit. But I think I don't want to treat it like that. I think instead what I want to treat this process like is similar to like a Reddit post, to where you basically would create a code review post, and when you do that, that would include you pick a repository and you pick it at like, I want the master branch of this repository right now, and then you can go and ask questions for it. And then what that means is, instead of storing which commit on the question level, all the questions point back to a repo or point back to a code review post. And that code review post is now going to store kind of like the general information, the repo that we're accessing, and like the commit ID, and kind of the general things. So I think that's the direction I want to go with it. So what that means today is I kind of want to start with creating a new entity to store that information. And then I'm going to connect that, and all those entities are going to connect with questions. So here's the flow that I see. You log in with GitHub, you click on a repo, and then you still do questions. But underneath the hood, when you pick the repo, we're going to create a post for that repo, if you will. So that's kind of the direction I'm thinking about going with it. So with that said, here's what I'm thinking of working on today. The first is to create this entity. I'm not sure if I want to call it a repo, because you could have the same repo multiple times. The other thing I'm thinking is, after we create this entity, I think it's probably going to make sense to make it called like a code review post. After that, we're going to have to grab the latest commit ID. And then to do this, someone actually had an issue that posted exactly how we can do that. So perfect. We're going to use this to actually fetch the current ID of the last commit that we're going to need. And then after that, when a user picks a repo in that little drop down that we made, so pick repo, I guess we're bundling. Currently we're not doing anything. What I'd like to do now is to actually create a repo entity, or whatever we end up calling it, a code review post underneath the hood. And then I want to point questions back to that. So that's pretty much the agenda for today. By the way, one last question. I've been able to catch all your streams so far. So I don't know if you solved this yet, but what's your solution for the Prism multiple language thing? Are you including all of the CSS? So what I'm doing with that, so basically you're asking how we handling, we have a bunch of different CSS we could possibly be loading for all the different programming languages. I'm just trying to see, where did we actually put that? I think maybe in the code file. Alright, so basically what we do is we take the file extension, which is going to be in the path. So for example, if I go to coponder/master let's pick a file. All right, so the path here is going to be packages/tsconfig.json. And so we pass that to this function called file name to language. Basically, we have a regular expression here. All it does is it grabs the file extension, so .json, and then we have a map of extensions, and we look up the extension in this map up here. So for example, JSP maps to Java, and we have JS maps to JavaScript. So we return the language here. Oh shoot, we need to go back to that. There we go. So now that we have the language that the person that we need to highlight for, we load the language dynamically. So to answer your question, we do not load any CSS until we need, well, we load CSS. We load all the CSS for Prism. We load the generic Prism bundle, the theme, and we also load like line numbers and the line some plugins. But the actual language itself, for example, JSON, JavaScript, TypeScript, we dynamically load depending on what the file extension is based on the file. And what this includes is we just have a function called load language that takes the language, and then after that's done, we highlight it. And then load language is actually a recursive function that recursively imports that language and then any dependencies that that language has for syntax highlighting in Prism. So like for example, if I want to load the TSX syntax, I also need to load JSX and TypeScript. So that's good to know. And that's pretty much it. That's pretty much how we do it. Yeah, it's a pretty crazy setup. Does the map have every language that Prism supports? No. I basically just tried to do like a decent number of them. I forget where we got the original. We like copied the map from somewhere, and then we added a few things, a few keys that were missing. And so it's going to be one of those things where we just update as we find stuff broken. Also, where I left things last real quickly, the link was broken when we tried to click on cards. So it now works. Funny enough, the fix is right here. So we have to import an empty CSS file in our app. So let's see. I guess I can just search for it here. So we actually don't have anything in the CSS file, and we import it here, and that little hack solves it for us. It's a bug in Next.js. It wouldn't be too expensive to add them all, right? Because they're being dynamically loaded. Oh, to our map? Yeah, it wouldn't be expensive. It's the only thing stopping me is like I just don't want to spend the time right now to go through and add all the programming language. You could probably scrape Prism with Puppeteer to get a map and support all languages. It's an interesting idea. Let's see how hard that would be. That would definitely be the way to do it. Maybe we should do that at some point. Yeah, if you want to do that, that would be great. So basically what we need is file extension, and maybe some of them may have a list of file extensions. And so like this is also the tricky part. It's not just scraping. Is like, for example, this one, JavaScript maps to JavaScript and JS. So the file extension is JS, but we need JavaScript. Alright, so I'm going to create a new entity, which I'm going to call code review post. Yeah, I can repeat that. So for example, let's go to what it looks like. So what load language does is it actually imports from the Prism package. We say prism.js/components/prism dash this. So I can actually find all of the, so you don't actually have to scrape it. I just remembered because we have this. So if I do an ls on node modules, right? This is the list of all the things that we need to import. So it's prism dash the name of the file. The thing that we don't have is file extension mapping to this. And so that's what the map does up here. Not load language, but the file. So like for example, if a file has .wasm, that means we need to import the file called WebAssembly, right? Web. Does it not have WebAssembly? I thought it did. Well, WebAssembly is definitely a bad example, but for example, let's see if they have C. Grep, if I pass it -C, it thinks I want the C file. So for example, if there's a .h extension, we need to map that to C. That way we load prism-C. So that's pretty much the part that we have partially done. Here's the partial mapping. The WebAssembly thing is odd because it says it's right here. Okay, they actually have WASM, so we should remove that. If the mapping is one-to-one, like WASM extension goes to WASM, we don't need it. Anyway, so I've been just kind of incrementally adding that. Alright, so here's what I'm thinking for the code review post. I don't know if I want an overarching programming language. I'm just checking right here if it actually gives us the programming languages. And I think it gave us maybe an array. I think it would be helpful possibly later to show the languages, so might as well. So this would be the programming languages related to the repo. I'm going to call this repo name so it's explicit. No, I'm just going to call it repo. Branch, I'm going to say commit ID instead. Username is fine. Though I want to say repo owner, I think. So it's this one I do want explicit. That looks so weird to have double O there. Creator ID is fine. actually going to be creator. All right, so I can set up the relationship right now as well. Is the code review question is going to be connected to posts. So instead of storing the repo, the branch, and the username, we're just going to store less stuff. And we're also going to store the code snippet in here. All right. And we also still care about the path. I'm trying to decide whether this is still going to be null or not. I think we need to make it nullable here. I think I can just say field I don't think I need to explicitly say that type. I think we still do want to store the programming language for a question, though. So we need to remove some fields from here. Let's see if I crash the server real quick. You need to do a specific type. Okay, I was wrong. I was also going to add the one-to-many relationship, which I just forgot to do. Well, I guess it's a many to one. Maybe we'll just call this post. And we'll call this questions. So we need to make the reverse relationship. Store the programming language for further filtering in the search. Yes, and possibly like we're storing it as a tag right now, so we may want to continue doing that. Why string and not string? So I think this is just something that about Typeform, I believe. It doesn't like it when it's a lowercase s because it thinks it's something else. I actually don't really know what the difference of what we're passing in here. It looks like we're not actually passing in a TypeScript type here. It looks like we're passing in the class string. Um, at least it looks like it from the string constructor here. Yeah. Yep, this is a GraphQL thing, a type GraphQL thing. Alright, so what else do we need to add? So I also added a code snippet to this, and that's the only other thing I added. So we're going to say code snippet here. The other thing though about the input is we also need to set up the relationship to code review post. So we're going to say post ID. I do learn from watching these videos, but I also am lost on a lot of stuff. Like, I don't know TypeScript or Typeware. I'm still learning GraphQL, so it can be hard to keep up. Yeah, I can definitely see that. Where are you at right now with learning stuff? Are you trying to learn GraphQL right now? I guess, oh, you said you were learning GraphQL. I guess you're learning GraphQL with just JavaScript right now. Make programming languages an array. So with the question, can it have more than one programming language associated to it? I set it as an array for the post, because in a repo you could have multiple. Is it possible to have multiple? Is it possible? Because right now our algo is parse the extension is how we're determining it. That's the other thing. Can we determine multiple programming languages in a file? I don't think so. At least I don't think we're going to make that. So I've always been more of a front-end dev, and I'm trying to find and learn back-end stuff. I've known Express and whatnot for a while, but I recently just sped through the SQL tutorials on Codecademy so I could get started with Postgres for Prisma. Nice. I actually don't even think it's good to have a base knowledge of SQL, but I don't think you actually even have to interact with much SQL if you use Prisma. Alright, create code review post. Alright, so this is going to be these fields right here. Alright, so programming languages, which is an array, repo, commit ID, repo owner. And these are all the fields that we need to actually create a post. To update the updated add built-in column, they expect us to edit a primate on the entity. Like you have to write SQL to update it. Or not necessarily bad things, but I just hear it's not as good as knowing your relation database in the long run. Yeah, I definitely think learning SQL and a relational database is super important. So I would also recommend like knowing that. And personally, the order I like learning it in is like learning that stuff and building a GraphQL API without Prisma. And then once you like are comfortable doing that with a database, then add Prisma on top of that. If you connect relational field, it doesn't update at. I have to add a dummy string field and actually change it. Oh, that's messy. So we didn't actually create the response yet. Create code review post. Find code review questions now is not really a... We're gonna have to change basically our resolver over here. I'll change that at a later date. Why add types on top of types? Are you talking about why use TypeScript with GraphQL? Because you already get typing on GraphQL, so you actually get types for free that way. So it's actually very nice. Is it easy to do subscriptions with type GraphQL? Actually, I've never tried. I'm not sure actually what even the syntax looks like for it. Let's see if they have it in their docs. I believe they do. Yep. It looks pretty easy. In fact, it may be actually easier to write the subscription in type GraphQL than to deal with the regular. Yeah, you should learn TypeScript. It's worth. Though the order that I learned stuff in is I learned JavaScript, then GraphQL, and then TypeScript after that. So I wanted to see the schema and see if we had a post on here. And I just remembered I need to import it. So instead of importing it every time, I'm just going to use the glob syntax that Type GraphQL supports out of the box. Haha, broke it. No, I didn't break it. Alright, let's see where my syntax is off. Index modules star star resolvers.ts. I'm also going to do star in case I ever build this and I want to have JS there. Still no? Alright, let's see if anything jumps out to me as being wrong. I called one resolver and one resolvers. So that's problem one, but I don't think it should crash like that, if that's the case. What resource would you recommend for learning TypeScript fast? Should I just go through the docs or is there a better approach? Yeah, I agree with Lulu. 5-minute intro to TS on their docs, I believe, is what I did as well. Cool. This loaded now. And now I see my create code review. So something I notice whenever I'm doing GraphQL projects is I spend a majority of the time on the front end. Alright, so now we have that in place. I'm going to say code review post. Let's create some mutations. Oh, use Wackatime. How do you like that? I was thinking about using that at some point, but I haven't actually installed it yet. Make this pretty. I guess let's grab everything. So what I wanted to check there is if I had data loader set up for the post. And that's what I just remembered. I think in our base resolver, we include the creator. Okay, yeah, we're good. Ben's not using Prisma though. Yeah, I'm not using Prisma for this project. Wanted to try out Type GraphQL and see how it is. Yeah, I kind of wanted to see like an indication of where my time was spent, so I may give that a try. Does Typeform automatically generate a schema based on your database? No. So Typeform only does database stuff, and it actually doesn't care if you use GraphQL or not. I'm using Type GraphQL to kind of automatically generate some stuff right now. So this is where I can just update the code review question fragment, and it's going to be really convenient. So we no longer have a path, we no longer have a repo, we no longer have a branch on it. Yeah, we don't have any of those actually, or a username. We do need to be able to fetch the post given a question though, so we'll have to add that reverse at some point. We have programming language on that now. This should probably be a fragment. We'll probably create that at some point. CR generate. Alright, our home questions query. I now only want to, this is gonna get dicey. Because I really need to get this data on home questions, so I'm gonna have to do something else. Because we only have those values now. Alright. Me cannot query field me on type query. So I just need to rename that to resolver, and in doing that, this should now pick up the me type. Okay, now we have me. Fantastic. So now when I say pick repo, after I actually pick one, right here, I guess I should create. So the thing is, I don't know if I want to do create or find. I think I do want to do create or find. Because I don't actually want to create a new post if it already exists for the same commit ID and all that other stuff. Anyone here got a Pi 0? I personally do not. I'm not sure what I want to set up first. I guess I should set up the server first. Alright, code review post. I guess it should be a totally new resolver, maybe. A new base resolver, which I'm gonna call find or create. Let's create a new one. I'm gonna say find or create So one thing I'm thinking about is I don't know if I can make a generic find or create, because there's only going to be certain fields that you want to find by. No, okay, I'm going to make it. I thought of how to do it. Find or create resolver. By the way, I came up with a new way to reuse type GraphQL stuff, which we're going to use here. So instead of extending stuff, we're just going to straight return. Alright, so what information do I need to know? Let's go ahead and just write the resolver as if we were going to write it ourselves. Find or create code review post. We also want to make this an authorized field. Because we need to access the context. And get the request from it. Alright, so this is what I want the code to look like. So now I'm going to make a generic version of this that I can pass to anything. Do you think GraphQL is another layer to the stack? What do you mean by that? I mean, I guess you would consider it another layer. Yeah, let's paste this below. Yeah, what do you mean by another layer to the stack? So the field is going to be an array of strings. And that's what we're going to loop through and check against. Does GraphQL take over Flask, or is it add on top of it? Oh, I see what you're saying. It does not replace Flask. It's a layer on top. So you would use GraphQL with Flask. You would not use GraphQL instead of Flask. Hey, Garogat, or Garogat. So actually we had one of our viewers figure out the problem, and they figured out what was wrong with the router. What it turned out being was a bug in Next, and the solution or hack to get around it is to import an empty CSS file in our app.tsx file. So literally we're importing an empty CSS. Yeah, exactly. So I'm no longer going to make this abstract, and I'm not going to be extending stuff. So now I'm just going to export it. So suffix is going to be code review post. Argument type, create code review post input. Entity, response, fields are going to be commit ID, repo, and repo owner. So we actually don't even need this. So Kiev is actually kind of the wrong thing here. Though input is a class, so we need to say TypeScript Kiev for classes. Kiev doesn't distinguish between methods and properties. So type of code review response and the input. The input should have 3 different fields. But it's only expecting a prototype. That's kind of an example of what we want to do. Let me make sure we're doing it correctly. Alright, so that's actually correct. So this is where I need to actually just explicitly set the types here, I think. So T goes to GraphQL type. What if we said extend object? Does that work? And this literally matches. It won't let me do the key of this arg here. This is kind of a complex. Yeah, this is kind of a complex TypeScript thing that I don't know how to set up correctly, so I'm just going to say as any. Here I'm going to say load creator resolver. Copy this class instead. Did I? Yeah, I did. This is the class I want. And the reason why I want this class is I want this. So we just need to know the entity, and now it's going to add a resolver for the creator field. All right, that works. If you have a user, then you create a resolver for users and users, and that's often it. You need to specify stuff. You can either create some filtering for the user query in the resolver or create a separate resolver to get something other. Yeah, that's right. We'll probably set something up like that at some point. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Hey, Quang. All right, so we kind of are doing like, I guess, kind of some meta stuff there. And now when I call the finder create there, we don't actually want it to be finder create. I'm gonna say find or create, and then we need to pass in the suffix. All right, so we just have a new name for this now. find or create code review post. That's what I want. And let's see if this generates. Exactly, we're able to generate all of these queries for us and the types for them as well. So it's going to be type safe as we're using them, which is very nice. So now in our pick repo function, we're going to say find or create I'm just trying to think if I made this a mutation, and I think I did. Ah, that should be a lowercase f. I was like, why was I importing that like that? Find or create. All right, yeah, we want this one. No, we don't. We want find or create. Did not generate it? Oh, this should be a lowercase f too. I don't know why I did an uppercase f there. Find or create code review post. Find or code review post. Generate again. Interesting, it's not showing up. Server's running fine. See ya, Beepo. Good luck with stuff. Oh, that's right. I was like, why isn't it generating for this? And that's because we are not including it. All right. So now we need to put all this information in. So programming language, we're going to say item. Does it tell us what the value of this is? No. There we go. I'm going to say item dot language because it only gives us one when we're doing this request from the REST API. I think we're going to switch this out to do the GraphQL API at some point. I don't know if it's going to give us the commit ID at all. Yeah, so we're going to need to get the get commit ID. Repo. Repo owner is going to be the username of it, which is called owner. Ah. In the pickup repo, there's a languages URL. Yeah. What are the specs on your laptop? I'm actually using an iMac right now. And here you go. So language is for sure null. Alright, I'm gonna log these repositories and just see what the data inside of them is. I guess I know for sure I want to just switch this over to GraphQL to fetch this, that it doesn't matter. That maybe I shouldn't even bother, because like you get so much junk with this too, so you can see immediately where GraphQL is nice. Like we don't care about any of this stuff that it gives us. So login is this. The login is the username. Alright, I guess that's really the next step then, is to switch this over to GraphQL, at least fetching it instead of using OctoKit to fetch it. So I think we'll do that next. I think I'm going to go ahead and end the stream here today, and then that's the plan for tomorrow. This will fetch that. So let's push up the code to GitHub. And I'll stick around for a few more minutes if anyone has any other questions, and then we'll call it a night. Rethink DB. I think Spectrum uses that actually. We'll use the pickup page as the main page for creating questions with a more extended form. I don't think so. I think I want to, that page is just going to, I think I may eventually make that an extended form for like the overarching code review. I don't think it's going to be for individual questions. I think we want to keep the individual questions on the page, on the actual code pages. and then keep that. I could see having like adding like a question or having a question page that's not related to code, and then it may make sense to include it on that page. Yeah, they do use RethinkDB. I actually have like no opinion on RethinkDB. I don't really know much about it. All I remember is I think they went out of business. Alright guys, gonna go ahead and end the stream now. I'll see you guys later.